Hi, and welcome to this special edition of BCPS News. I'm Mary Beth Marsden. You know, on July the 1st of this year, Baltimore County Public Schools welcomed Dr. Dallas Dance as the new school superintendent. Focused on creating a culture of deliberate excellence, he has 4 major issues that are his top priorities. They're on his list. And here with me now to talk about some of those challenges, some of the issues, some of the successes, is Dr. Dallas Dance, and it's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Very good to be here.
So you've been here a few months now, and people are getting to know you. You've been meeting with people. You've been out and about. But for a lot of people who might be watching our newscast right now, they might be saying, wow, it's great to see him, and I'd like to know more about him. So let's just start with just sort of the very basic general. But what's sometimes the hardest thing to talk about is yourself. Who are you?
Well, okay, you're right. 6 months and counting, and I've enjoyed truly every single day of it. So folks will ask, who is Dallas Dance? And I have to say, first and foremost, I'm a father. I will say that I have been sort of impatient in terms of how I approach education and improving educational outcomes for kids. But becoming a father 3 years ago, of course, you become reasonably impatient because you want to make sure that every single kid who is under my purview here, 107,000 kids, they have the same level. It is a 26th largest school system in the country, but they have the same level of educational access and excellence that I hope even for my own child. And so if I had to describe myself, it's a father first, and then of course when I make decisions on behalf of 107,000 kids in our school system, I make it coming from the lens of a father first.
I remember during the search process that this county was embarking on, and many other counties as well at the time, and your name came up in quite a few. What was it about Baltimore County? You talked about how large it is very diverse, both with the kinds of children that we're teaching and also geographically. What is it about Baltimore County that you thought, this is where I want to be?
Well, interestingly, if you want to be a superintendent, you can be a superintendent anywhere. There are tons of openings. But for me, I was really looking for, if I was going to take this role, an environment that was ethnically, culturally diverse, but where the community really had a stake in understanding how they can play a role in improving educational outcomes for kids. So when I had the opportunity, I was being recruited here, when I had an opportunity to visit here, as just a layperson on the street, no one knew who I was, asking folks questions about the school system, I could tell very quickly that we had a community who understood the correlation between their role in educational outcomes for kids, and that really got me more and more excited. I got my start in a school system that was truly, I tell folks, could be the sister school system to Baltimore County, and knowing that I could come here and actually have that direct relationship with the community, it was just something that really got me pretty excited. And then, going through the interview process, which was several hours with the Board of Education, I had an opportunity to really hear from them what their priorities were. And if you're going to get anything done in a school system, you have to have a Board of Education that's committed to it. And I saw that with the 12 members who were interviewing me.
All right, so in the first 100 days, I always make a big deal with the first 100 days, whether you're the school superintendent or the president, right?
It's always about the first 100.
I know, which there's so much more to it than that, right? But during that first 100 days, you met with a lot of people, you met with community groups, you met with parents, teachers. What were some of the concerns that started to come out and started to materialize in your mind?
Well, for me, my first 100 days was all about outreach. And so when I presented to the Board of Education in October around what I had sort of gleaned from that 100 days, I could actually put them into themes and categories. And I focused it on the 12-13 school year, and then I focused it on the next 5 years for Baltimore County Schools. And for the 12-13 school year, there were 2 themes that were just paramount. They kept coming up. And that was the need to address our issues around curriculum, because we were moving to Common Core, and that's a national movement now. But the state of Maryland has adopted, and so Baltimore County needs to adopt and adapt to it as well. The second thing was the infrastructure, and this came out in the profile when folks were looking for the superintendent. But how do you really make sure that we have 21st century learning environments that are air conditioning, that make sure that we have modernized classrooms for kids? And that's what they really wanted someone to address, and to be able to work in collaboration with the county to solve those tough issues. And then I started to see that over the next 5 years as a school system, there were 4 areas that folks wanted us to put attention to. And this was academics, it was safety, it was communication, and then it was organizational effectiveness. And so if you look at the framework for the new strategic plan, Blueprint 2.0, you see those 4 columns or 4 pillars really having focus as we look to draft that next strategic plan.
Let's talk about that Blueprint 2.0, because I think this is going to be a theme for you for a very long time.
It is.
And you mentioned the 4 points of it: academics, safety, communications, organizational effectiveness. Are they ranked in any order?
They're not ranked in any particular order, but I will tell you,
All of them hold up the building.
They do, but the school system exists for the academic program. So if I were to tell folks this, I would say that 85% of what we do is around the academic program. And so that's why you see that one first. But the other 3 areas have to exist if you're going to actually make sure that academics are first and foremost. And so that's why you see all 4 of them. And then you see this layer underneath it that really talks about Team BCPS and how everyone in the organization, I always say this, it's people, not programs, that get work done and that moves the system forward. So how do all members of Team BCPS work together to make sure those 4 pillars stand together?
All right, let's break them down even further. Let's talk about academics. When you look at academics, I think a lot of people feel, especially with technology now, that this is a pivotal time in education with the changing of maybe federal rules, rethinking of things. So let's talk about what in academics do we really need to focus on?
I think we need to go back to the 30,000-foot view. And part of my work as a superintendent is really advocacy at the federal level and at the state level. And I said this just recently in a meeting I had with some federal officials. If a school system is going to exist, it has to go back to the standards. What do we really want students to know and be able to do when they graduate from our school system? What should a Baltimore County Public Schools graduate know and be able to do? What should they possess? What types of skills, abilities should they have? And so we're at a critical point now nationally because we're moving to Common Core. There have been 46 states that have adopted these standards. And really what we've said as a nation is that there have been so many things that we want kids to know and be able to do. Well, it's too much. We have 180 school days, and we have to be able to make that happen. And we can't have teachers who are trying to cover so much that nothing gets done. So with the Common Core state standards in ELA, or English Language Arts, and in mathematics, we've said that we're going to actually go from all of this stuff that we want kids to know and be able to do to this. And then we want kids and teachers to go deeper into the learning of this, which is phenomenal because we don't have a large amount of time in school. We have a finite number of days and hours, so let's go deeper. And so that's what Common Core does. Once we get those standards in place, which we currently have, now academically we have to figure out what does it mean for Team BCPS? What does a 3rd grade math really now look like for our students as opposed to what it used to look like? And then all of that resources, that technology and how to get it done, we work with our teachers to get that working in our classrooms, but we've defined the what for teachers, and then they actually get their innovative spirit by actually figuring out then the how.
And the whole time you haven't brought up STEM.
Well, one of the things
that plays into this.
Well, one of the things that you look at, and it used to be STEM, now we're looking at STEAM. I'm a big proponent of the arts, and folks know that, from my.
I love hearing that.
They know from my appearance at the honors chorus, band, and orchestra. They know from my support of the arts program and our magnet programs. It's really how do you make sure that science, technology, engineering, arts, and math are all working around your entire curriculum. But you understand too that with the Common Core being what it is, there's going to be a lot of integration now, as opposed to math being one thing and ELA being one thing, and then you go to science and that's being one thing. How do we make sure that kids understand how everything works together to move their learning forward? And so that's what we're trying to do now as we build this sort of world-class curriculum for every single student for our that exists in Baltimore County. And then what do we need to do to make sure it goes deeper into their learning?
I want to touch on safety too, and I think mainly because day one of this school year really brought that to light and how important that is.
It is, and one thing I had looked to do in my entry plan anyway is talk about how do we expand our safety and security efforts. But one thing I realized that on the first day of school is that we're not immune to situations and to circumstances. So as a school system, we need to accelerate our efforts on that one. And so we had done a really good job as a school system being reactive when we have situations that exist on our campuses. And we needed to say, how do we actually turn that and become even more proactive? And so we expanded the Office of Safety and Security. Dale Ronzon, who's done a phenomenal job as Executive Director of Student Support Services, he was always our go-to. And so when I started looking around the country in terms of who could deal with safety, we already had the individual in our backyard. We just needed to make sure we focused the efforts a little bit more. And we started working with our campuses around how do you create safe, secure environments on our campuses. And that's making sure that kids feel connected in school, that they feel connected to an adult who knows about them and who they feel connected to go to if there are situations. And then how do we create environments where if there is something that's going to happen on our campuses, our students have a mechanism and a vehicle to report that, and that they don't have this need to say, okay, they're going to know who I am. It can be anonymous. But we get so many tips from students, from parents, because that protocol is in place.
All right, I really want to touch on this, and this has to do with communications, but I know this is really a hot button word with you, transparency.
It is. We exist for the community. I always tell people this, our budget is supported by the taxpayers in Baltimore County and the state of Maryland. And because these are taxpayer dollars, we have a fundamental responsibility to make sure we're open and honest with people. What I've learned from being here in Baltimore County is that folks don't have a hard time having a difficult conversation. They just want you to be honest and upfront with it. And so from this administration, I've pledged that. We have been open and honest with folks. We've shared with them how we make decisions and what we base them on. And so that folks will continue seeing that from the administration, and how we communicate with folks is important. And I know always folks will say, we want more communication, but we also want to make sure that it's accurate communication. So when we put something out there, we're just not doing it for the sake of doing it, but it's accurate, it's timely, and it's transparent.
And while we're on the subject of communications, we have to talk about your student town hall. This is new, the first of more to come. I know at least one more in this school year. But just talk about what you got from that, and what do you think the students got from that?
You know, I tell people, when I did my first student town hall, it was probably the best day of the superintendency thus far. And I'm going to have great days ahead. I'm going to have not so great days ahead. But that was really the best day I've had so far. And the reason why is because we make all of our decisions based on kids, but we never take the opportunity to really go to them and hear from them in terms of what are those issues that are impacting them. And I did that. I had about 70 students from high schools on the eastern part of our county, and they really talked to me about things that they thought mattered to them: school lunch, safety and security, academics. I was really, really excited to hear them say, we want more course offerings. We want a schedule that's built around our needs and not necessarily the needs of teachers or principals. And so that really made me understand that if we're going to really, really push the needle on what we do as an organization, the student voice has got to be at the paramount picture of that. And it informs the work that I do in working with our school principals. So we did say we're going to do one more over the course of this school year, where we actually will bring in high schools from the western part of the county. But we also talked about how do we expand our efforts and just making sure that student voice is always at the table whenever the decision is going to be made based on them.
One final thought before we let you go, and that is where you see this school system going in the next 5 years.
You know, I see our school system as not ranked as one of the best school systems in Maryland, but really one of the best school systems nationally. And if that's going to happen, it's going to be based on people. And so if you look at how we've designed the pillars of our strategic plan, the outreach we've done in developing that plan, it's all based on people and people input. And I said this in a previous interview I was in, it's going to be based on organizational development. How do we make sure that every single member of our organization gets the professional development that they need to move the needle forward, and how all of us understands our role in supporting principals and schools and the academic program that we look to exist in Baltimore County Public Schools. So it's not just Maryland we're shooting for in terms of being the best. We're looking at nationally, how do we benchmark ourselves against our counterparts?
And why not, right?
The sky's the limit for us.
Dr. Dallas Dance, Baltimore County Superintendent, thank you. This is just the beginning, and a good one it is.
Thanks, Mary Beth. I appreciate it.
BCPS, as Dr. Dance mentioned, has a very diverse population. It's important that we celebrate our diversity because, after all, diversity is all of us, right? Let's take a look at the cultures that make up our school system.
Yes, it's important to be able to work with people who are different. But also it makes the children better people because they can see that other people are different, recognize value in that person.
Well, you should care about their culture. You shouldn't just know about your culture. You should know about different cultures around the world because it's important in life.
Sometimes we think of diversity in terms of the ethnic background of our students, but diversity is so much more.
Diversity is not just ethnicity. So we need to realize that we need to meet the needs of all of our students.
You know, there is a world out there that's not just Towson, Maryland, and that people do come from other places, they do speak other languages, they dress differently, and so, and that's acceptable.
It's not just promoting diversity in a traditional sense, it's making us globally oriented, that the world is not just about the United States anymore. We are all interconnected, we all work together.
Kind of like apples and oranges together, which is pretty much what we're doing. I get to experience different things and it helps build me as a person.
It's a scarf and I cover my hair with it and it's part of my culture, so I thought it was like very important for them to know.
Now what if you had a handicapped family member, like a brother or a close person to you?
Baltimore County takes pride in our diverse student population, and we highlight this diversity through both central office and school-based offerings that create a range of opportunities that really enhance our curriculum and also, most importantly, celebrates the unique characteristics of our students.
Diversity!
All of us. All of us. All of us.
All of us.
All of us.
All of us.
All of us. All of us.
And that does it for this special edition of BCPS News. If you have any story ideas, comments, or suggestions, contact us at edchannel@bcps.org and follow BCPS on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, I'm Mary Beth Marsden. Thanks for watching.